The air over the Persian Gulf has grown thick with the salt of the sea and the smell of JP-8 aviation fuel. As of mid-March 2026, the second phase of Operation Epic Fury has transitioned from a purely aerial bombardment into a massive, multi-domain projection of force. Following the Pentagon's confirmation that the B-2 Spirit fleet is on full combat alert, the world is now witnessing the arrival of the heavy metal. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently approved a request from U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, to deploy a massive amphibious ready group, ARG, led by the USS Tripoli, LHA-7. As this floating fortress enters the region, accompanied by thousands of Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, the panic in Tehran has reached a fever pitch. The sight of V-22 Ospreys filling the radar screens of the IRGC isn't just a military maneuver. It's a clear signal that the U.S. is preparing for the possibility of boots-on-the-ground operations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This steel rain from the sea. The arrival of the USS Tripoli marks a significant shift in the conflict's geometry. Unlike traditional aircraft carriers that focus on high-altitude strikes, the Tripoli is an amphibious assault ship designed specifically for literal, nearshore dominance. Its decks are currently packed with MV-22B Ospreys, the tilt-rotor workhorses capable of transporting Marines hundreds of miles at turboprop speeds before hovering like helicopters to land in remote, unprepared coastal zones. For the new Iranian leadership under Mojtaba Khamenei, the Osprey is a unique nightmare. While the B-2s strike from 50,000 feet, the Ospreys represent a vertical envelopment threat. They allow the U.S. to bypass traditional port defenses and land Marine raiders directly onto the sensitive coastal islands of Karg, Abu Musa, and Greater Tunb. These islands serve as the IRGC's unsinkable aircraft carriers, housing the anti-ship missile batteries and drone launch sites that have paralyzed global oil trade. The panic in Tehran stems from the realization that their missile cities are being hammered from above, while their coastal lifelines are now vulnerable to rapid, low-altitude seizure. Marines on the horizon, the 31st MEU. The 31st MEU, traditionally based in Okinawa, is one of the most battle-hardened rapid response forces in the U.S. inventory, comprising roughly 2,500 to 5,000 Marines and sailors. This unit is a self-contained Swiss Army knife of warfare. It includes infantry battalions, M1A2 Abrams tanks, HIMARS rocket systems, and F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters. Pentagon officials have been careful to describe the deployment as a maritime security mission, but the reality on the ground, or rather, the water, suggests otherwise. Defense Secretary Hegseth was emphatic during a March 13th briefing, stating, "The only thing prohibiting traffic in the strait is Iran shooting at shipping. We will not allow the strait to remain contested." By positioning the MEU just off the coast of Iran, the U.S. has created a fleet in being that forces the IRGC to keep its remaining ground forces pinned to the coastline, preventing them from reinforcing internal security nodes or the capital. The chaos in Tehran, a leadership in hiding. Inside the red zones of Tehran, the mood is reportedly one of chaotic desperation. State media attempts to broadcast images of defiance, showing crowds pledging allegiance to Mojtaba Khamenei, but reports from underground networks paint a different picture. The panic in Tehran isn't just about the bombs. It's about the total collapse of the axis of resistance narrative. With the elder Khamenei confirmed dead and Mojtaba reportedly wounded or in deep hiding, the IRGC's command structure is fracturing. Local commanders, fearing the scalpel strikes of the B-2s and the impending hammer of the Marines, are reportedly making independent decisions to move assets into civilian neighborhoods. This has led to tragic consequences, including the double-tap strike on the Shujaitia Bay school, which Secretary Hegseth attributed to the regime's terrorist tactic of using human shields. The arrival of the Ospreys suggests to the Iranian populace that the war is no longer a distant threat in the sky. It is literally on their doorstep. The electronic shield and the Ospreys' reach. The V-22 Ospreys deployment is bolstered by a massive electronic warfare (EW) umbrella. As the Tripoli moves toward the Gulf, it is supported by Aegis-equipped destroyers and 18G growlers that blind Iranian coastal radar. This allows the Ospreys to fly in dark, using terrain-following radar to skim the waves and avoid the Russian-made Su-35s that Iran has desperately scrambled to defend its airspace. The tactical flexibility of the Osprey cannot be overstated. In a 12-hour window, the 31st MEU can launch a multi-pronged raid to 1. Neutralize Karg Island, reclaiming the terminal that handles 90% of Iran's oil exports. 2. Rescue hostages, securing diplomatic personnel or captured sailors from merchant ships. 3. Escalated, suppression of enemy air defenses, landing small teams of Marines to manually destroy radar installations that the B-2s might have missed. A global phosphorus flash, the economic stakes. As the Marines rush toward the Gulf, the world economy remains in a state of phosphorus flash, a sudden, blinding realization that the era of cheap, stable energy may be over for the foreseeable future. With the Strait of Hormuz closed and oil prices surging past $120 a barrel, the U.S. deployment is as much about protecting the global dollar as it is about military victory. The kill zone in the Strait has become a graveyard of tankers, and the Marine presence is intended to serve as a floating escort. Secretary Hegseth has indicated that the U.S. will begin forced convoys, using the Tripoli's F-35BS and the Marines' Ospreys to provide a continuous air shield over commercial vessels. If an Iranian fast attack boat dares to approach a tanker, it will now face the 20mm cannons of an AH-1Z Viper or the precision-guided hellfires of a Marine drone. The brink of ground war? Despite the maximum pressure rhetoric, both Hegseth and General Dan Kane have insisted that this is not 2003 and not endless nation-building. However, the sheer scale of the force heading toward the Gulf, thousands of Marines, dozens of Ospreys, and the full weight of an amphibious-ready group suggests that the U.S. is prepared for a limited ground incursion if the regime does not meet the demand for unconditional surrender. The Iranian panic is justified. For the first time in 40 years, the technological gap between the two forces is not just a gap, it's a canyon. The IRGC's swarm tactics, which relied on thousands of small boats and drones, are being picked apart by the MEU's integrated sensor-to-shooter net. As the Ospreys tilt their rotors and descend toward the Persian Gulf, the message is clear: the long-range, the electronic shield, and the Osprey's reach. The V-22 Ospreys deployment is bolstered by a massive electronic warfare (EW) umbrella. As the Tripoli moves toward the Gulf, it is supported by Aegis-equipped destroyers and EA-18G growlers that blind Iranian coastal radar. This allows the Ospreys to fly in dark, using terrain